Fiona O'Callaghan believed she had retired from surprises when she left the London stage for the quiet hills of County Wicklow. Yet, on the first Friday of October, the Silver Birch Inn brimmed with the kind of tension she used to conjure from the footlights. A handful of guests huddled around the reception desk, eyeing the velvet-lined casket Father Declan O'Shea carried with surprising nonchalance. Inside was the Blue Widow, a sapphire the size of a robin's egg and the subject of half the ghost stories in Leinster. Legend claimed it had cursed every owner since it was pried from the coffin of Lady Roisin O'Dwyn in 1783. Professor Alastair Broome, who escorted the jewel on loan from the National Museum, insisted the tales were romantic hogwash, which only made the priest raise an eyebrow. "It's a jewel, not a banshee," Broome grumbled, while the wind rattled the door like skeletal fingers. Fiona kept her voice light. "Whether or not it's cursed, Professor, it's still the star attraction for tonight's storytelling." Her former director once told her she could balance dread and charm on the tip of a fan. Tonight she traded the fan for a teapot. The inn was full. Broome, Father Declan, married potters Liam and Moira Kelleher, travel blogger Saoirse Doyle, Russian jeweller Anya Kuznetsov, and Eamon Flynn, a fisherman stranded by the storm-flooded lanes. 8 guests, 9, counting the Sapphire, made the hall feel more crowded than the Lyceum on premiere night. Because rainfall tightened roads into streams, Fiona locked the front door after the last arrival and slipped the key into her cardigan pocket. The gesture was habit-born from decades of stagecraft. When suspense threatened, control the exits. By dusk, the peat fire glowed, chairs formed a haphazard circle, and the casket sat on the mantel like a mischievous prop. The Blue Widow threw fractured light onto the beams each time Father Declan lifted the lid, and even Broome fell silent at the sight of it. Fiona brewed cardamom cocoa, remembering she could calm a chorus line with nothing more than warm cups before a matinee. The inn smelled of turf smoke and nutmeg, a scent she hoped would muffle whatever mischief the evening brought. Saoirse began the tales, weaving a modern ghost story about GPS devices that lured drivers onto cliffs. Moira followed with a legend of a potter who spun clay so fine it sang. Father Declan offered a parable about temptation. His gaze lingered on the sapphire, making more than one guest glance at the stone with unease. When it was Fiona's turn, thunder rolled so near the windows rattled. Lights flickered, the fire momentarily painted the walls blood orange. She rose, accustomed to holding an audience without scenery or script. "Stories have limbs that reach into real life," she began, "and sometimes they borrow our hands." She might have said more, but the lamps guttered. Darkness swallowed the inn so thoroughly that silence came in its wake. Even the storm held its breath. Glass shattered. A woman screamed. Fiona thought it was Anya's sharp cry right behind her, but pitch darkness offers no certainties. Another crash, a thud, and then the lights buzzed back. The hearth flickered. Chairs lay overturned. Guests gaped at one another. The casket sat open and empty. The Blue Widow had vanished. Professor Broome lurched forward, cheeks flushed with equal parts anger and panic. "Which one of you thought this was amusing?" he barked. Father Declan made the sign of the cross. Saoirse fumbled for her phone to record the frenzy. Liam Kelleher helped his wife from the floor, both covered in cocoa stains. Anya clutched her throat where a pendant nestled, eyes wide. As for Fiona, she closed the casket and clasped her palms, letting her voice cut cleanly across the rising babble, a skill perfected in dressing rooms where every actor shouted at once. "Everyone stay here." She sped to the foyer, turned the brass lock, and removed the key. Eamon Flynn, dripping rainwater, lifted a brow. "Bit dramatic, Mrs. O'Callaghan." "Old habits," she said, pocketing the key again. "No one leaves until that stone is found. The Garda can't get through the flooded bridge before morning. We'll manage ourselves." The group exchanged wary glances. "Consider it an immersive mystery," she added, half joking, though her pulse skittered. "I've had worse opening nights." Storm-tossed branches clawed the windows. Somewhere in the distance, a fox barked. Fiona delegated quickly. Liam checked doors and windows. Sayasa documented the room with photos. Father Declan searched the nearest hallway, and Fiona herself lifted the velvet cloth from the casket, searching for hidden panels. There were none. Examination revealed that during the blackout, someone had stepped on the hearthbrush, grinding soot onto the braided rug. Several chairs were toppled, yet only 2 cups lay broken. Shards of cobalt porcelain, not sapphire, glittered near the fire irons. The jewel had not been smashed. No one would risk destroying a sapphire worth, according to Broom, an obscene figure best left unspoken. So it had been pocketed. But by whom? And, Fiona's throat tightened, was the curse already weaving through the rafters? Act 1. Motives. Fiona guided each guest, one by one, into the breakfast nook for conversation over chamomile tea. She invited them to keep the door open. Secrecy bred suspicion. While they spoke, she scribbled notes as diligently as any stage manager. Professor Broom. He had academic custody of the gem. Insurance alone would have provided him security for decades, but universities track such things. He did, however, brim with resentment that rumours of curses eclipsed his papers on the stone's geological formation. Father Declan. The priest had spent months cataloguing relics for the diocese. He called the sapphire a bauble ensnaring souls, and joked that the safest place for it was the bottom of the Irish Sea. Joke or wish. Liam and Moira Kelleher. Their pottery studio, Kiln of Kells, recently lost a tourist contract. Fiona knew because Moira had confided at check-in, voice quivering behind a smile. A sapphire could patch 1,000 cracks in a budget. Sayasa Doyle. Her blog, The Wandering Word, boasted 500,000 followers. An exclusive about a vanished cursed gemstone would explode her traffic, provided the stone vanished long enough to post the scoop. Anya Kuznetsov. Jeweller fluent in stones as Fiona once was in Shakespeare. A sapphire of such cut practically whispered her name. When asked where she was during the blackout, she answered, "I grabbed for my phone, but someone shoved past me." Her accent thickened with nerves. Eamon Flynn. Stranded local with no tie to the gem save curiosity. While others packed for weekend escapes, he carried little more than a fishing magazine folded in his coat. But poverty sometimes breeds daring. Act 2. Clues near midnight. Fiona inspected the front hall again. The umbrella stand held 6 dripping specimens. One was coated in grey clay like shucking mud. She remembered Moira saying their latest glaze contained Wicklow clay that smelled of heather when wet. In the sitting room, she noticed lavender threads on the rug. Sayasa's scarf was lavender, Anya's teal. Fiona pocketed a thread. In the scullery, a single rubber boot sat beside its partner, but it was dry while the mate was sodden. Eamon's boots? The fisherman was meticulous about his gear. Would he misplace a wet boot? She climbed the stairs to guest rooms, flat shoes silent on oak boards. Outside Broom's door came the cadence of pacing and muttering. Inside Liam and Moira's room, Clinks suggested pottery tools set on a dresser. Anya's door was shut, yet under it spilled a pulsing blue shimmer, not sapphire luster, but the glow of a phone screen. Fiona slipped to her own quarters, removed the theatrical makeup kit she seldom opened, and assessed her findings. Storytelling night was meant to mesh legend and laughter. Instead, it had become a 3-act whodunit. Her former director's voice echoed, "Find the spine, Fiona. Every play has one truth that holds it upright. The spine here was time. A thief needs moments unseen." The blackout lasted perhaps 15 seconds, more than enough if the thief stood close to the mantel. Who had been nearest? She replayed the circle. Father Declan had sat opposite the fire. Moira occupied the rocker adjacent. Broom had hovered behind Fiona, irked because she blocked his view. Seosa lounged on a tapestry poof several feet away. Anya perched by the hearth itself, examining the jewel whenever Father Declan presented it. Liam leaned against the wall, arms folded. Anya near the hearth. Obvious. Too obvious. Fiona's stage instincts twitched. Audiences leap at the brightest gesture, ignoring the subtle misdirection. Magic thrives on such habits. Act 3. Revelations. At 2 a.m, the storm calmed to drizzle. Fiona gathered everyone in the breakfast room. She set the empty casket on the windowsill, as if the jewel still lay there. Cups steamed, cake slices sat untouched. "I've played detectives on stage," she said, "but never with stakes so heavy. Humour me while I reconstruct." She dimmed the lamps until only a single lantern illuminated the casket. "Blackout," she announced, plunging the room into near shadow. Someone crosses the hearth, using the darkness as curtain. They know the stone's position by heart. They've studied the priest opening the lid several times. She pivoted the lantern toward Anya. "A jeweller's eye." Anya stiffened. "I did admire it, yes. But admiration alone." Fiona aimed the light at Broom. "A scholar tired of mockery might plan a disappearance dramatic enough to prove the curse rubbish. Retrieve the gem later, publish the perfect paper." Broom opened his mouth, whether to confess or argue, but Fiona turned the lamp toward the Kelleher's. "Or a potter whose kilns have cooled for lack of orders. One sapphire could fire them anew." Moira's breath hitched. Liam's jaw clenched. Finally, she faced Eamon. "Then there's the man who believes curses are broken by flinging stones into deep water where no one can profit. Fishermen know graves the sea keeps." Eamon shrugged, neither confirming nor denying. "So who?" Fiona asked, setting the lantern down. "I left nothing on stage to chance. This inn is my new theatre, and I know its props. Earlier tonight I found soot on one chair leg only, Father Declan's." She let that sink in, then continued. "I found lavender thread directly below the mantel, matching Seosha's scarf, and an umbrella coated in clay matching the Kelleher's glazes. Red herrings, or all parties scrambling in chaos." Anya exhaled shakily. "We are going in circles, yes." "Until we find one straight line," Fiona agreed. She produced the dry boot from behind her skirt. "Eamon, you lost this in the dark." "Wasn't mine," he said. "Size too small." Broom crossed his arms. "We can't search every pocket and suitcase without cause." "We won't need to," Fiona signalled Liam. "Could you fetch the tea cosy from the parlour? The knitted one Moira made?" He complied, returning moments later with a plump, lavender-striped cosy. Fiona set it beside the lantern. "When the blackout struck," she said, "someone needed a quick hiding place. A pocket would bulge, a handbag might jingle. But if the stone were slipped into soft yarn, then left among the teapots, who'd suspect? Besides, It explains why I found lavender thread on the rug. Saoirse paled. I never left my seat. I believe you, Fiona said gently. You weren't the only one with lavender. She touched the cosy. Moira knitted this, but Liam carried it from the parlour just now without asking why. He knew precisely where it was. Liam's eyes hardened, but Moira gasped. Darling, Fiona continued. Earlier, while everyone bustled, I checked the cosy. It was heavier than expected. Shall we open it? She peeled away the knit. Nestled in the crown was the blue widow, winking beneath loops of wool. Moira staggered back from her husband. Liam, he raised his hands. I only meant to keep it safe until Garda arrived. I saw movement by the mantel, thought someone else would pinch it. I grabbed the stone, stuffed it into the nearest thing, and planned to hand it over quietly. Professor Broom scoffed. A noble Samaritan. Pull the other one. Fiona's gaze softened. There's more, isn't there, Liam? Your studio, banks calling? Liam's shoulders sagged. We're weeks from closing. Thought if the gem went missing, insurance might pay the museum. They might reward whoever found it, or... He swallowed. Or I might bargain with a buyer in Dublin. But when lights came on, panic seized me. Hiding it seemed the only way. Father Declan murmured a prayer for mercy. Moira's anger folded into sorrow. Fiona retrieved the sapphire with a handkerchief. Legend says the stone curses thieves, yet tonight it revealed desperation, not malice. That curse prefers fear. She offered it to Broom, who accepted with wary fingers. Garda will still have to hear this, the professor said. Liam nodded miserably. I'll tell them everything. But Fiona gently shook her head. You will, but remember context counts. You returned the jewel before your scheme bore fruit. That may temper judgment. She looked around. Does anyone contest? No one spoke. Even Broom, cheeks mottled crimson, seemed more relieved than vengeful. The storm had drained them all. Epilogue. Morning sunlight pierced the clouds, turning drenched hills into emerald velvet. Garda Inspector Aisling Byrne arrived after the bridge reopened. She took statements, photographed evidence, confiscated the cosy and jewel, and escorted Liam to the station for formal questioning. Moira accompanied him, hand on his arm, silent yet steadfast. By afternoon, the inn was quiet again, though evidence of the night lingered. A cracked cup glued by Father Declan. Soot prints Saoirse insisted on photographing for her blog's curious audience, and a lingering hush among the rafters, as though the Blue Widow's echo still clung there. Fiona stood on the porch. Anya approached, raincoat folded over one arm. In my country, the jeweller said, we drink to nights we survive. You will join me, yes? Another time, Fiona answered with a smile. But do me a favour, don't buy any cursed gems as souvenirs. Anya laughed and departed. Professor Broom, waiting for his taxi, paused. You should consider actual detective work, Mrs. O'Callaghan. I prefer fiction, she replied. It's softer on the nerves. He lifted his hat. When they were gone, Father Declan lingered by the garden gate. Did you believe Liam's story from the moment you found the thread? Fiona adjusted a wind-tossed curl. Threads, boot, soot, clay, clues, Father. On stage we sprinkle signals for the audience. Real life does the same. Most folks don't notice, but an actress spends years studying where eyes wander. You might say Providence cast you perfectly, he mused. Retirement hardly suits Providence, she teased, then watched him depart down the lane. The inn exhaled in the late sun. Fiona entered, wiping rain from the threshold, and righted the chairs. Storms pass, legends slumber, and stories await fresh ink. She hummed a lullaby once sung in theatre wings, its final note curling up the stairwell as tender as curtain fall. Tomorrow new guests would arrive, hungry for hearth and welcome. They would never guess a cursed sapphire had glared at these beams, nor that a retired actress had quelled its mischief with nothing more than keen eyes and borrowed stage tricks. Fiona pocketed her master key, turned the lock, and smiled at the silence, the grateful hush of a story concluded, at least until the next act.